Welcome to the Work is Weird Now podcast. Whether you're nearing retirement, entering the workforce for the first time, or caught somewhere in the confusing muddle in the middle, you're likely sensing it and you're probably living it. We know we are, and we want to know why. Listen in as we interview experts and everyday people like you to find out how best to navigate the ever-growing weirdness of work in the modern age. Welcome to Work is Weird Now podcast. Today we have Ben Legg with us. He is the former COO of Google Europe. He's an engineer. He's an author known for his expertise in technology, AI, and the future of work. Now he is a keynote speaker, investor, mentor, and the co-founder of the Portfolio Collective, a global community of portfolio professionals, and the subject of our podcast today. We'll be talking to him about portfolio careers, what it means for the current economy and the future of work, and how to get one if you want one. So welcome, Ben.
Good to be here.
It's great to have you. So just to kick off, can you just give us a definition? Like, what is a portfolio career? Because we're hearing it a lot these days, and it's just good to just get a sense of how you define it.
So there are a few variants, but ultimately it comes down to you're not just dependent on one job. So, a simple explanation is you make money in more than one way. So it might be as simple as a day job with a side hustle, or it might be you've wound down or got rid of the day job and you just make money in a lot of interesting ways. There are, people say, well, actually, when you start doing things for charity or for hobbies, you're building the potential for future revenue. And so, there's some variance to it. But in essence, you're saying I'm no longer a wage slave. I am a one-person business.
A wage slave?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So I suppose the burning question today was, are we all going to have portfolio careers? What do you think?
So possibly. There are very few forecasts that go out beyond 2030. So before lockdown, before AI was a big thing, forecasts that 50% of workers would be portfolio professionals by 2028 or 2030. So they were looking 10 to 12 years out. And we're now ahead of that. Lockdown and AI and remote working and a whole lot of other things have accelerated this massively. So, for example, 51% of Americans have already created a company in their own name so that they can have a portfolio career. 44% of Brits basically have more than one source of income. So we're already nearly at 50%. And it's 2025. And no one's really updated it because it's changing too fast. But if we're going to be at 50% in, say, 2026, where does this end? Is there a future where everyone is a portfolio professional? Every single person is a one-person company. And companies as we know them are just, agglomerations, if that's the right word, of individual people who collectively get stuff done. But, each person is a company. So that's the extreme. I don't know if it will go there, but I wouldn't rule it out either.
I mean, those are staggering numbers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a couple of businesses for quite a long time now. And as the creative professions have sort of been hemmed in a bit by AI and other things that are happening in the markets, I've seen, probably because I'm at the coalface of work in many ways, because I do work for myself, I've seen the need to diversify and to develop more sources of income just because I want to future-proof for myself, right?
Yeah.
And so do you think this is a good thing? Is it necessary? Does everybody need to be going this way?
So one of the interesting things, and you hinted at it there, is, it's interesting that the phrase portfolio career is very similar to a portfolio manager, which is an investment manager. Now, investment managers don't put all their money in one stock because it might crash. They build a portfolio of investments because that way you can manage risk. And I think one of the main benefits of a portfolio career is you generate multiple incomes. So you reduce the dependence on one company that might go bust or run out of money or fire you or whatever it might be. So I think in a world that's incredibly volatile and higher risk and changing faster than ever before, most people would be crazy not to have multiple sources of income. Even if you still like your day job, start building something on the side. It's a parachute, if nothing else.
It's so interesting, actually, because when I was talking with one of our contacts at an SEO agency that I'm working with, and the mindset of her generation, which I think she's in the Gen Z category, was like, this is my 9 to 5, but what's my 5 to 9? That's and it's normal. It's just totally normal.
Yeah.
Whereas for classic millennial over here, it's like, Well, I'm not going on that linear career trajectory that I've mapped out all those years ago.
I need to have a promotion every 2 years, or I'm
but I've got to be a
failing,
director by this age. I don't know. And
Yeah.
it's unpicking those things that were ingrained
Totally.
in us for what a good career looked like. Now I've been in it for a year, and as much as there's still moments when I feel like my esophagus is going to close over, and then the next pendulum swing, it's like total liberation and fulfillment that I never imagined.
Yeah.
What about it's how are you experiencing people on that journey too?
Yeah, I mean, I'll add something on the process before we talk about the journey. The journey is a much more complicated one, but it's not just about career design anymore. It's about life design. Really, it's really saying, I will have many stages in my life, and I need to adapt my work to those stages. And one of the things I think most people, younger people, are accepting is you might never fully retire. Because let's face it, most countries, including the UK, are bankrupt. So, the chances of having a decent pension from 60-something years old are almost non-existent. They might kick in at a later age and they might be smaller. But also, if you're going to live to 90, do you really want 30 years retirement? You'll die of boredom. So I think most people realize that, the 20s is probably your learning phase. It's not all about money. It's about learning and network and personal brand and trying stuff. Your 30s, you need to start earning something because you're probably planning a family. Your 40s, you have a family, so it's the chaos stage of kids and money and everything else. But then after that, you might say, well, I'm in my mentoring stage, I'm my giving back stage, or I'm going to actually finally do those hobbies that I left out earlier in my life that I'm going to have time for now. Personally, in my 80s, I like the idea of being a really good tour guide. Slightly eccentric Brit, helping rich Americans do tours of London, taking them into some fancy private members club they can't get into on their own and telling interesting stories, getting the steps in, a couple of days a week. So I think, people need to get that mindset because pragmatically, that's the kind of life we're going to lead. And you're right, young people have kind of got it already. It's like, those corporate careers just don't exist. And let's face it, they've had the biggest lesson in the last few years of most graduate, over half of graduate trainee jobs have gone. So if you can't get that first step on the ladder, you might never get on that ladder.
And also, I don't think they want to be on the ladder. They're actually, no, that kind of lifestyle, lifestyle isn't truly what I want. The world is different, and it's refreshing.
So and you asked about the journey, and we could talk for the whole session just on the journey because there's definitely ups and downs. There are hard things and there are great things about a portfolio career, and even just getting started, it can be quite daunting because if you think about a portfolio career, you're a company of one, so you need your own strategy, your own brand, your own offering, which could be products or services or both. You need to have a pipeline of opportunities that you generate. You need to deliver for clients. You need to get referrals. You need to work out what do you do yourself, what do you outsource to others, and what do you use AI for or software. You need to have manage your finances, manage your taxes. That's quite daunting. Now, the good news is there are lots of materials around. Obviously, we've generated some, but there are people to support you along the way. And there is good software and things, and you don't have to do everything yourself. You can collaborate with others, but it's still pretty daunting. Most people have typically worked in one business function, so to become a one-person business is a bit scary.
Yeah. Is it, in your experience, more daunting from the logistical standpoint, like being able to get people to figure all that stuff out for themselves, or is it more challenging from a mindset perspective?
Good question. I think if you get the mindset right, everything else follows. So if you say, what do I work on? It's work on building your confidence and determination to do it and setting aside time to make it work. And once you do that, great. So for example, yes, a lot of people have imposter syndrome. Like when I was in that big corporate, I didn't build my personal brand. My network's rubbish. How do I, win work? Which is a great question, a really important question. But if you decide to do it, you say, right, okay, I'm going to really work out my story. Who am I? What am I selling? Who am I selling to? I'm going to tell that story well on LinkedIn and elsewhere. It could be on the Portfolio Collective, could be on your own website, could be on other sites that, where talented people hang out. I'm going to go and tell my friends and family, what I'm up to. I'm going to start networking proactively in the right areas. And before you know it, you've given it 8 hours a week for a few weeks, and opportunities are starting to come in the door. So again, it starts with the mindset of, I'm going to do this, I'm capable of doing it, I'm going to get started, and it's a journey. And don't be too perfectionist. Perfection, people say it in full-time jobs, but perfection, kills energy. It's like you just got to make progress every week. That's
The
it.
enemy of the good, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I would imagine you've got like a number of different types of kind of personas, right, within
Yes.
the portfolio community. You've
Yeah.
got people who are the the risk reducers,
Hmm.
basically, who are trying to find a number of ways to take their core skills and set them out in
Yeah.
a number of different directions. Then you've got the kind of versatility seekers, right, who
Hmm.
really just want different things and they want to
Yeah.
explore all those
Yeah.
different curiosities. Do you find there's one category that trumps the others?
It's a great question, I think, because you're right. But people are so diverse, and one of the key things we say to everyone is try and be unique because it makes you more
Mm.
memorable. So it's very hard to say there's buckets. Now we do have, this is not quite personas, but I'll come back to personas. We've broken the portfolio careers into 4 types of portfolio career, which I think people find helpful.
Mhm.
The first is literally the side hustler. So, that is typically for 90% of people, step 1 of a portfolio career. You start making some money on the side. It might be turning your hobby into something that you can monetize. It might be taking the skills from your day job and doing it with other clients. But often it's something else. It's some kind of new skill set that you're developing, and you start off helping people for free. Then you realize you can charge and what have you. So that's often stage 1. And then beyond that, there's 3 possible paths, and you typically pick one, but you can change at any time. There's freelancer. Yeah, that's often when you have ditched the day job and you're working for clients. Typically, the big difference about a freelancer is the client defines the work and goes looking for someone to do it, and so you're working to a brief. The second is what we call a focused expert, where in some ways you're generating the work. So you're saying, I want to be the best at X. It could be city planning. It could be, building avatars. It could be, whatever it might be, analyzing enormous data sets using AI. But you work out what it is you want to be the best at, and then you build a personal brand around it, and then you can monetize in multiple ways. Consulting, interim work, possibly creating IP that you can monetize, lecturing, writing a book, whatever. But because you're the best at something, you have a lot of monetary streams. And then the fourth one is what we call multi-hyphenates, which is people saying, I'm going to do a bunch of unrelated stuff just because it makes me happy.
Mhm.
And we got some fun examples of that. One that we often refer to because she's kind of a fascinating human, but her day job is B Corp lawyer, but she's also a career advisor at Oxford University and a circus entertainer.
Amazing.
She's an ex-Olympic athlete too. That's how she wants to live her life. But we got another one where it's kind of almost a multi-hyphenate, but there is a related thing. Is we have someone who's an ex-Royal Navy helicopter pilot who does helicopter test flying. That's his main job. He does a lot of work with drones, drone racing, competing in different ways. He also is a beekeeper, but actually has like a beekeeping farm that people come to learn how to do beekeeping and make honey and stuff. So he says they're all related because they're all things that fly in strange
Yep.
ways, which I get.
Yeah.
But obviously,
Expert in things that fly.
yeah. So he's obsessed with things that fly, I guess.
Mhm.
But yeah, so you could. Those are the 4 buckets. Now, in terms of personas, you're right. There are some people who maybe say, I just want to support others. I like being a fractional chief of staff or EA or project manager. Other people have the vision. I come in and support them. You'll have some people who are maybe aspiring entrepreneurs, but step 1 of being an entrepreneur is just building a 1-person business, which might turn into a company one day. It might not. There are others who just thrive on diversity of people, projects, etc. And there's probably a bunch of others too. So basically, I think almost anyone can make it. You don't have to fit a certain style. But what you do need is there certain things you need to do. Like you do need to put effort into building a pipeline of opportunity.
Mhm.
And I might jump into that one because I think one of the biggest worries people have when they launch a portfolio career is, I don't like networking, or I'm not good at networking. And I get it. But I think because a lot of people have the wrong picture of networking, or maybe it's the old-fashioned picture. It's like walking to a room full of strangers, drinking terrible wine and forgetting everyone's names and thinking, I can get home back it. But that's not good networking in general. And again, I'm not anti those events. And if you meet someone interesting, they can be great. But the best quality networking is typically one-to-one or small group. And you're just literally chatting with people and seeing if you can help.
Mm.
What's on your mind? What are the biggest problems you're dealing with? Have you thought about X? Have you thought about Y? Afterwards, you maybe drop them a friendly note, introduce them to someone, share an article. You do that, 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 people at some stage say, have you got more time?
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I
It's
mean,
a
I
lovely
think
way to live life. You literally
it
hang out
is,
with your best and
yeah,
keep
it is.
problem
I mean,
solve
I
and
would definitely be one
opportunities.
of those people who said I hate networking as well. But I've realized actually when I first started doing this that I would probably have to plant 10 seeds
Yes.
and 3 of them would grow. I
Yeah.
now feel like I need to scatter 1,000 seeds and then
Yeah,
maybe
if you got a
pepper a couple
30% hit rate, that would be amazing. I think
exactly.
5 to 10 is probably more likely. And
Mhm.
some things take forever. Like, sometimes I will actually I'll give you an example of one that really was random is I'm on the advisory board of a accelerator, a venture builder basically, and they had a sort of 30-ish-year-old ambitious young associate who, needs investment. And he said, "Can I pick your brains? I want to be a partner in a VC one day." I said, "Fine, bit of career advice just because it feels good." Did that, didn't think anything of it, didn't expect anything. It's just being helpful. The next week, he was skiing with a school friend whose parents founded Lapland UK, which, for those that don't know, is like an amazing Christmas experience. They take over a forest near Ascot every Christmas and turn it into Santa's village, and they're expanding. And they said, "We need a mentor. We've got bigger aspirations. Who can help?" And he said, "Well, you should talk to this guy, Ben." And hey presto, I started working with them as their mentor and sort of experienced friend if you want to take a business global. And all I did was give someone career advice.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and I'm a
Just
true believer
being
in that. Like,
helpful.
you got to knock on the doors because you never know what door's going to open on the other side. And I've had a
Exactly.
few people reach out to me lately about like, we've got any guidance on this, and I only did it a year ago. But that first few months when it can feel isolated and desolate, almost like,
Yeah.
oh, good God, I'm on my own.
Oh,
Those
totally. Yeah.
mini 30-minute conversations that were all virtual, I've a lot of strangers genuinely who I just went, "Can you just tell me your experience?" There would always be another conversation on the other side, or some led to opportunity, but and led to something else. And that it's having that, got to swallow the frog, for the want of a better phrase on it. You've just got to do it, right? It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel weird. I think you were saying about networking. The bit I don't find networking like comfortable, but for me, it was like selling. I'm not a salesperson. I don't know
You
how
don't
to
need to sell. You need to be
convert.
helpful. That's it.
Yeah, and it's understanding like
Yeah.
the things around that just
Yeah.
switching the narrative and those types of things of just always having a learning
Yeah.
mindset, a creative, curious
Yeah.
mindset is
Yeah.
going to get you so far.
Big
Mm.
time. Yeah.
So this is all great. This sounds
hmm
wonderful. What about the organization? Is the workplace itself
hmm
ready for this kind of model? Because I can tell you in
Yeah.
my experience, I find I do, I have two different businesses that do slightly different, but in my mind,
hmm
related things. I find it almost impossible to sell the two sets of services into the same client because they want to
Sure.
see me as one way. And I
Yeah.
imagine that that's the tip of the iceberg in terms of the challenges you get when you
There's
actually interact.
loads of challenges, yeah. So let's maybe start with what's really broken about the old model before we dwell on the new model. So let's take a traditional big company that hasn't reformed itself much since lockdown, and hopefully most of them are, but there are a few, because I know some of them, that haven't. Think about the old model of hiring, okay? So it would take you 3 to 6 months to justify a new hire because of the internal processes, then 3 months to find someone, then they have a 3-month notice period, and then 3 months induction. You just lost over a year, by which time you don't need them anymore because the
Mm.
situation's changed. Either their job's now being done by AI, it's been outsourced, the company's been bought, the company's acquired someone else, the company's moved to a different work model, or whatever, or moved head offices. It's like the chance of you needing someone 12 months after you identify the need, you've missed it, you've missed the boat. So at the extreme example, that rigid manpower planning, headcount planning, org design that only changes every year or two is kind of dead. The world is changing so ridiculously fast. And, it's just that some of the biggest things changing. Clearly, just the way we work with remote work and international work, is massively changing. Visa rules, a lot of countries rather, pulling up the drawbridge in some way and changing those. That changes things. Geopolitics is getting more unstable, and then clearly AI. Every time AI changes what it's capable of, we should think about, well, how does that change the way we work? Well, AI
Mm.
gets better every week.
Mm.
Now, I'm not saying you
Day.
revise your org structure every week. That might be a bit extreme. Maybe one day. But yeah, probably you can't go more than 3 months without reviewing your org structure because
Mhm.
things change so fast. So to me, the organization of the future needs to have way less full-time employees. Yet realistically, full-time employees are people you say, I need them for 50 weeks a year or 48 or whatever it is you're working for 40 hours a week. I don't see it changing in the near future. And I need that person for continuity and joining the dots, which, let's face it, there are some roles. Now, if we believe those forecasts, about 50% of people are portfolio professionals, 50% full-time, simplistically, that means about half the work in most companies will be done by full-time employees. But that means the other half will get done by fractional employees. That's a reasonable line in the sand to say, where might we be one day? Now, different industries will have different ratios, but if in doubt, it's interesting for anyone, let's say in HR or org planning or chief of staff, whatever, to say, let's assume in 5 years' time, only half the work is done by full-time employees. What does that mean? That means you need to be really good at spinning up new projects and teams, really good at shutting them down when they don't work, really good at moving things laterally. You need to be great and efficient at finding and hiring and onboarding new fractional talent. If you want to maintain your culture, you need to think about, how do you do induction in 2 days, not 3 months? Because you need people to hit the ground running. But also it probably means you hire for culture even more, because they don't have 3 months to learn the culture. They need to turn up and fit in. Yeah, and then you need to think about world tools. Well, how do we onboard people to our platform, whether it's Slack or Teams or whatever it is? But how do we offboard them as well, so we don't have security risks? There's like so much that you need to build. But ultimately, any organization that isn't saying, how do we get better at working with fractional talent, is probably setting themselves up for failure.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many potential, as you just described, there are so many potential friction points for that
Mhm.
arrangement right now. But one of the reasons why this old model existed is because it gave people certainty and clarity
Yeah.
over when they'd be paid and things like that.
Yeah.
So now we're going to cause upheaval in that entire system.
Yes.
What are either the corporate moves or the policy objectives that sort of need to be pursued by governments or whatever else in order to ensure that the workforce in general feels a sense
Yeah.
of predictability?
Yeah, and it's tricky. I'll start with the predictability, which, because I don't think it's particularly on the companies or the government. I think to a extent it's on the individual. And so what I do, which is a sort of a time-consuming process, every week I do a rolling 12-month cash flow forecast. And it's money in and money out. So which clients will almost certainly pay me, when will they pay me, how much, what's in the pipeline, what's the probability of them closing, how much could it be? I'm always a bit cautious on revenue and assume costs go out of control. But so it's a mixture of household finances and company finances. It's like how will that work? And the nice thing about that, and it's about an hour every Saturday morning. Basically, it's one of my weekly routines. But the nice thing is I'll start saying, okay, I think that project's about to roll off in 6 weeks' time. What's there to replace it? And do I need to hustle a bit more,
Mm.
etc. So again, comes back to being a one-person business. Governments don't bail out companies if their sales pipeline dries up. If you're a one-person business, governments won't bail you out. Now, that doesn't mean government don't have a role. I think governments need to stop seeing fractional workers as victims and see them as just the new normal.
Mm.
So rather than try and regulate against it, you talk to most people who are in fractional work, and this is literally from doctors who like mixing up the NHS with private, to Uber drivers. Most of them prefer it because of the flexibility. So don't
Yeah.
treat them as a victim and try and force them to unionize or to be employees. Just say, well, how can we make it work? So I'd start, quite frankly, with education. Is no one's trained to be a portfolio professional. So how about training the whole population, about what it takes to succeed, and at different levels. Some people might need to work out, how to build a personal brand. Others just how to work with the apps that might give you work. Others might get educated on, well, how do you set your rates? There's a whole load of stuff. And by the way, we do some of that, but our niche is kind of professionals, and there's a lot of other people that need help. So I think educating and setting expectations would be massive. I think another risk for portfolio professionals, they don't set aside money for pensions. So there
Mm.
might be something they can do around either pushing people to save for pensions or helping think it through. Now, the good thing is portfolio professionals are much more self-reliant. So very few of them will probably retire at age 65 or whatever. So they will be less of a drain on the state. But at the same time, I think a lot of people probably aren't saving for pensions. So
Hmm.
making it easier to invest in pensions. In some countries, like in the US, healthcare can be an issue. If you don't have a
Mhm.
full-time job, you may not have anyone paying for your healthcare. Now, if you're successful enough, that's fine. You can pay for your own. But could there be work that they could do in countries with private healthcare around saying we have a scheme for fractional workers? for portfolio professionals. What else can the government do? The government can invest in the startups or the technology that makes fractional working easier, etc. So I think there's a lot that they can do. But if I was in government, I would focus heavily on education. That'd be 50% of what I would do, and the other 50% would be set this as the new normal. Don't try and fight it. Try and make it work for as many people as possible. Help people know where to look for work, how to look for work, how to do work, how to save, how to manage your finances, etc. And invest in ecosystems and technology and government services that kind of support people. Now, the other thing I'll say is, if it is going to be 50% of workers, which I believe, the government will also want to get their hands on their taxes of those people.
Right.
Right now, one of the beauties of being a portfolio professional, it is more tax efficient than being an employee. And although I would love it to stay that way, governments will realize one day that people who used to pay 45% tax are now paying 30% because you can basically expense a lot more of your life as a portfolio professional. They'll probably try and find a way to get that number back up.
We'll make sure we cut that so they don't hear it, right?
They are not listening, right?
Yeah.
It's so many of our conversations go back to the education piece, don't they? Like so many, and we've even talked about a spin-off pod. Education is weird now.
If you think about work, before we even talk about portfolio careers, which need a lot of training and education, but it's like all work in the future is going to be imagining new things, designing new things, building new things, fixing old things, or stitching things together in interesting configurations, and then doing the storytelling and the human support that comes on the far end of it. Anything that's as a routine will be automated. And so many jobs right now are routine. And obviously we're starting with white collar work because that's what AI can do. But when robotics get better, it'll be white collar and blue collar. And so, I forget the numbers. There's a lot of research, but probably something like half of all work will be eliminated, but there'll be a whole load of interesting work created. But it's not the stuff that comes from memorizing stuff and sitting through the exams that we do now.
Right.
I'd love to see in education much more training and learning around entrepreneurship, design, teamwork, storytelling, empathy, emotional intelligence. They're the things that AI will hopefully find it harder to catch up with. And let's face it, they don't get much of that at school or at university.
No, and judgment and critical thinking, which
Totally.
that is in deficit
Yeah.
right now. So, I mean, it's interesting you mentioned about the number of things that will be automated, because I think at the moment there is, from my perspective, I'm finding that actually I'm able to do my work faster. I can automate more, and actually it creates this space in my own portfolio career where I can actually look at what else can I be doing. I spend a lot more time ideating now with the partnership of AI, which is really exciting, if not distracting and almost like stress inducing.
I'm making videos these days for no purpose other than it's fun to do. So sometimes here's a gadget that does something fun. Hopefully it'll be a useful skill one day.
So it makes me think, actually, like, even people who are in full-time work, if we're now facing a reality where in 5 years half of them could be out of work, if not more, then actually should people be looking, even if they are sitting in full-time work, at what they might add to their portfolios in the future? Like, especially since they've got all these tools at their disposal. And then how would you go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the best time to start your portfolio career is probably as a kid. Literally start making money on the side. And anyone in a full-time job owes it to themselves and their family to have something on the side. It's irresponsible not to. As we've seen, even like government jobs will have to be under threat because governments are spending too much money. Big tech companies, you would have thought they're safe. Their revenue's growing like crazy. They're still laying people off because AI can do some of that work. So I think we all need to say, right, okay, the only person I can rely on is myself, or my family maybe, but it's like I need to have more resilience in my future earning potential. I need to have more choice, more diversity. And so I think everyone should be making money on the side and everyone should be developing new skills. And with AI, there's a phrase that I didn't make up, but I like, which is, AI won't displace you. Someone who uses AI better than you will displace you. So just learn AI. And the good news is, if you know how to learn AI, go to Gemini or ChatGPT and say, how do I learn more about AI?
Exactly.
And hey, presto, you've got a learning plan, and then start working from there. And it's just trial and error. It's really that easy. And just with every bit of work you do, just say, can AI help me with this? And occasionally it's no, but in most cases it's yes. And it can't do all of the job, but it often does the middle bit of the job. Think
Yeah.
about where do jobs have value. It's the beginning and the end. The beginning is working out what problem I'm actually trying to solve. And at the end is quality control and syndication and storytelling.
It'll help
The
you do some
middle
heavy
bit is
lifting.
often where AI can do a lot of the work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you also need that, certainly in the creative professions, you need that beginning part where actually you don't go straight to AI. This is what
Oh
I've
yeah,
learned.
big
You
time,
kind of
big
need to
time.
give yourself that space and actually use your brain at its
Mm.
Yeah,
full.
I never, ever, ever say, how do I use AI to do this job? It's really,
Mhm.
what am I trying to achieve? And then
Yeah.
what's the best way to do it? And very
Mm.
often AI fits into that bit. Yeah.
So I'm really curious about your discussion about kids and what children should be doing at this point, because
Mhm.
I think about this all the time, right? So I've got a daughter who's 14 and one who's 11,
Yeah.
and there's, a 14-year-old starting to think about GCSEs. So
Mhm.
I've had this thought recently where I'm like, what my husband and I should be doing is creating a business now that we think can probably scale in the next 5 years to the point that it could potentially create some aspect of work for them once they're
Yes.
finished with
Yeah.
school. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my headspace right now. But I think to your point about, them starting to gather work experiences
Mhm.
already so that they actually can start to
Big
shape
time.
their portfolio from
Yeah.
the start. Is that the kind of advice you would give?
Absolutely, yeah, and just learning what can and can't be done. I mean, as a fun aside, my first proper money making scheme was selling condoms. So, I, I was at
At
a
least
boys.
there'll always be a market.
Well, here's the funny thing: that very few of them were used for the purpose they were built. So I was at a boys' boarding school, and I realized that everyone wanted to have a condom in their wallet to show that they
Right.
were having sex. No one was having sex.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I also realized most people were too embarrassed to buy them. So I found a way to
Right.
buy them in bulk. It was, if I remember right, it was something like £4 for 12. I sold them for £1 each. It's a very nice margin business. Um, but then within a few months, everyone had one, so the market dried up. So then I started inventing games involving condoms, like water balloon fights or space helmets, where you pull them down over the nose, breathe in through the mouth, out through the nose, and have a space helmet. And it became, basically a constant thriving business.
I mean, they do have a shelf life. You could have gone back.
There you go.
Know that actually the
Yeah, and they
chances of
weren't going to be
using
used for
that.
anything else, so why not make games? But it's like, and that's just a fun one. In this day and age, you'll probably get people, being creators or doing project management or doing something related to, marketing or design or the roles that will go out there. And it doesn't have to start off being for money. It might start off, for a school project or to,
Mm.
to your point, to maybe support the family business or the parents who are portfolio professionals. Say, hey, can you build my website or make me a video or do some analysis or market research? And I've got 5 kids, and the older ones I'll use for market research and that kind of thing. So I think there's a lot that people can do so that they just kind of end up thinking, okay, making a bit of money on the side, that's kind of fun. Side projects, kind of fun. Using technology to solve problems, kind of fun. And obviously schools should do this too. It shouldn't just be us as parents. It should be schools. But if I think about, education in the future, I think an enormous amount should be project work and entrepreneurial projects. So it doesn't have to be entrepreneurial. Now, that doesn't fit with the world of memorizing stuff and doing exams on your own, but that doesn't prepare you for the world.
Mm.
We need our kids to be awesome at, imagining things, running projects,
Curiosity,
bring stuff. Yeah,
creativity,
exactly.
trying,
Um,
failing,
yeah.
just having a go. Yeah.
And
And
also
coming
just
back to
knowing
your
what
point,
knowing what they love and knowing what they're good
exactly.
at.
Yeah.
Yeah. And luckily, especially in a household where you have portfolio professionals, there's loads of ways to get your kids involved.
Yeah.
Mm. I love that.
So tell us about the Portfolio Collective.
Sure. So we founded the Portfolio Collective at the beginning of lockdown. So when I launched my portfolio career in 2019, I didn't even know it was called a portfolio career. So my portfolio career, it involves a lot of advisory work. So either board roles or mentoring of CEOs, everything from startups to FTSE 100 companies. I do quite a lot of work with Wall Street investors, helping them understand what's going on in Silicon Valley, and I do a bit of public speaking. And so I did that, ditched the day job in 2019. Started winding up these things into what I now know is called a portfolio career. I just did a bunch of stuff. I was very bad at describing what I did, as is everyone when they start. But I was telling a lot of people how much fun I was having. I spent a day, at Oxford today, helping some students build some startups. Oh yeah, I did a speech over here or whatever. And it's just kind of like fun. And when lockdown began, the Great Resignation kicked off, and it seems like half my friends wanted career advice. I was
Mhm.
literally getting 20 requests a week. Hey, Ben, either I've been laid off, I've quit, or I've had some time to reflect and I'm done with corporate life.
Hmm.
I want something a bit more like what you've got. How do I do that? And so I started off doing one-on-ones, but 20, and I was giving everyone an hour because it was early lockdown, and I started off with a bit of free time. but it was like 20 hours a week. It was killing my calendar. And I was saying the same thing to everyone. And quite frankly, I wasn't even saying it very well. Because what I realized when people started asking me questions is I was winging it, as you do, and making up every day. So I thought, we've got these two problems. I've got a time sink, 20 hours a week doing the same thing. That's inefficient. And I'm waffling. That's not helpful to them. So I launched a workshop called the Portfolio Career Workshop. And that way it solved both those problems. So it went from 20 hours a week to one, because and when everyone said, can I pick your brain? I said, sure, here's a link, see you Wednesday, cleaned up my calendar. But I thought, to make it more effective, I'll do some research. And so I went and interviewed 30 odd portfolio professionals, wildly successful, starting out, somewhere in the middle, asked them all these different questions. How do you find work? How do you build a brand? How do you charge? How do you price? What software do you use? What do you use for AI? What bank account? How do you do your taxes? Everything strategic, practical, the works. And I took all those findings and turned it into this workshop that was like the 8 steps of launching a portfolio career. Anyway, that was my plan. It wasn't to build the portfolio collective. It was to help my friends do it efficiently and stop waffling. But 20 people in week 1 became 40 in week 2, 60 in week 3. This thing just started growing arms and legs. And one of the biggest things that then happened is all these people wanted to meet each other and help each other and hire each other. And because of GDPR and other stuff, it was hard to share contact details. So I became the bottleneck all over again, where they said, Ben, can you connect me with so-and-so? I'd like to hire them. Ben, connect with so-and-so. I want to pick their brains, etc. And so I realized this needed to be a community. So what I've realized since then is there are 2 big problems with portfolio careers. They're complicated and they're lonely. The workshop was solving complication, but you are on your own. And people are tribal. So I said, well, how about we build a tribe? So that was the genesis of the Portfolio Collective. Fiona, my co-founder, came in. She's still with us now. And basically for 5 years, we've been building this lovely community. We're up to about 15,000 members around the world.
Wow.
All are sort of successful professionals in a variety of different ways. A lot of people out of the big tech companies, but a lot of people out of the military. Fiona's early career was in fashion, so a lot of people coming out of fashion. But along the way, they tell their friends and they tell their friends. So you get the accountants and the lawyers and the creatives and the politicians and the academics. And it's just a real medley of interesting people who all at some stage in the last few years have said, I'm done with corporate life. I want to have a portfolio career, but I don't want to do it on my own. And we collectively help each other succeed. We're also owned by the community. So 271 members have invested. So we've raised a couple of million so far from the community. So we're literally built for the community, owned by the community, which is really nice as well. So we're basically trying to help as anyone that wants it, live and breathe a portfolio career with as much success and a tribe to support them as we can.
And what does this mean to you at this stage in your career? Like, why is this important? Why is this your purpose?
So I guess I love helping people, but I would hate myself if I had kept ignoring or saying no to friends who wanted career advice. But I also like efficiency. So this is my way of trying to help people, but do it efficiently. Part of my sales pitch when I go to clients is, hey, you don't just get me, you get me and my 15,000 friends. It helps, me win work, but then they also know that it won't always be me doing the work. It'll be some awesome humans from the Portfolio Collective. And I think a lot of our members do that too. It's like they go and say, hey, you don't just get me, you get me and my 15,000 friends. Give me any problem. If I can't solve it, I'll be able to find someone who can.
I love that. If there's someone listening to this thinking, okay, it sounds great. Surely, what's the cat? Like, there's a downside. Am I going to be working all of the hours? What would you say? Hey, look, you're going to face
There's
these
loads of downsides. This is hard.
What is it? Let's call it out. It's not all hearts and roses, right?
So the first thing I'd say, more important than anything else, is you can't wing a portfolio career. Like, if you think it'd be a nice way to live a gentle life where work flies in the door, forget it. You need to hustle. You need to work hard, and you need to keep reinventing yourself because society keeps reinventing itself. So you need to always be one step ahead of the changes in how the world works. So the downsides, I would say, and the biggest ones are the ones that we try to solve through the portfolio collective, is complexity and loneliness. Complexity as in you always feel like, I still don't fully understand this. You need to embrace the fact that you're winging it every day, but obviously try to bring as much structure as you can. And the loneliness as in sometimes it's like, I'm not in an office with a bunch of colleagues where we're a team, I'm on my own. But that's where a mixture of friends, family, and the portfolio collective can kick in to say, hey, have you thought of this? Have you thought of this? And so effectively like reverse mentor, help each other succeed. So I would say loneliness and complexity are the two main ones. The other one, just pragmatically, is having consistent earnings. So everyone can earn money on the side. It really isn't that hard. But to do it 12 months of the year is much harder because you need a pipeline, and it can be feast or famine. Like there are times like September, October, everyone will say they're often insanely busy because everyone comes back from the summer, re-energized to have a new project. Great. But then August, August for me is always dead. So I've now accepted that, but for a while I
Me too.
hated it. And then December as well because of Christmas. So if you work in tourism, that's probably different patterns. But just making sure that you've always got the pipeline of opportunities, because existing work does dry up in different ways. And again, these are all solvable problems, but really having the discipline and the routines to always make sure you've got enough opportunities in the pipeline to replace the other work as it ends. Because around says most fractional work ends. Some things are a 1 week project, some things are a 2 year project, but there's no job for life in portfolio careers. So you just need to make sure you've got enough in the pipeline.
And we've got to unpick that. We go into a company being like, right, I'm going to be here for X amount of years. We've got to unpick that feeling
Totally.
of that is fractional work. It will come to an end at some point, and that's okay. And probably losing the job title is probably the other one. Dynamic marketing director doesn't exist.
And the corner office and it's like ultimately for most portfolio work, the client doesn't care about your past job titles. They care about, can you solve my problem? And what's your credibility? So, for example, we've built profiles on the portfolio sector that try to be the perfect shop window for a portfolio professional. And we've spent so much time with clients looking for fractional professionals that really there's 3 parts to our profile. One is the elevator pitch. Everyone needs to have a good elevator pitch. It's that 1, 2, 3 sentences that summarize who you are. And then the next section is what I offer, which basically is what problems do you solve? Because when people start, they're not looking for a whole human. They're just thinking, I've got a problem. It keeps me awake at night. Who can solve it? So you need to say, these are the problems I solve. Don't say 15, you'll sound flaky. Don't sound 1, you're probably missing opportunities. Most people 3 to 5 is probably a good number of problems that you're good at solving. And then on the final part of ours is experience, where it's less about job titles, it's more about your achievements in your life. So if you're saying I can help, let's say European companies launch in the US. What I offer is, here's how I do it, a bit about your methodology. In experience, it's, I did it with this brand and it worked and these were the results. So people don't really care were you a chief revenue officer. They're caring, did you do something similar to this and did it work?
And can I add another layer in there around personal brand is, I hate likability, maybe there's a different phrase, but the world we live in now, it's that trust and,
big time. Big time.
Do I actually, and that's why showing up online is so important, because you get the sense of, can I work with this person? How they operate, how they talk, what they believe in. That's such an important pillar, right?
And that's 100%. And that's why 50% of work for fractional professionals still comes through word of mouth. It's, even though you can technically find people online, and people do get found online too, very often people say, well, I'm finding these people online, they look good on paper. How do I know who I can trust? And then they turn to the people they know and say, do you know anyone who can solve this problem? Or I found this person online, I've seen you're connected, what do you know
tell
about
me about them?
So that whole you're right. Showing up, being consistent, being trustworthy is really important. The other quick thing I'll throw out, which is kind of nice, is be interesting. So something we encourage our members on their profile is at the end, just put something interesting about you. It could be just that you're a marathon runner, you're an artist, you're involved in a charity, whatever it might be, something quirky. It makes you more interesting, but also more memorable. So for example, we've had let's say a founder of a scale up saying, I'm looking for a fractional CFO, and we'll show them a few really, qualified candidates and say, which one do you want to meet? And they'll say the marathon runner. That's the more memorable
I love that.
So just be interesting as well. Ultimately, people do want to work with interesting humans. They don't start off with that mindset. They don't start saying, I need to find a nice person, and if they're competent, that's great. They start off with that they solve my problem. Then they say, are they any good? And then they say, will I find them interesting to hang out with?
Be memorable.
That's great advice. Well, I have to say, I was inspired by this going into my diary, and after signing up for a Portfolio Collective profile and sitting on it for 6 months have finally.
I'll get it done. And when you
filled in
do,
the
ping me.
gaps.
I'll take a look and get some feedback.
I've had some feedback from one of your colleagues, which was really useful and valuable. So yes, I highly recommend if anyone wants to get involved, this is a good way to start. How else can people find out about you, Ben?
And so really the best thing is to sign up to the Portfolio Collective. We have like welcome calls, or if you're not quite sure, we have a monthly call called the Introduction to Portfolio Careers, where you can kind of sit on the fence until you do that one. Mm-hmm. Or if you're pretty sure you want to do something along the lines, just sign up. It's free. Get involved. Build your profile. Start coming to events or chatting with other members, and before you know it, you'll be up and running.
Great. Perfect. Well, thanks so much. It's a great chat, and hopefully you'll come back again and talk to us again someday.
I look forward to it.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thanks so much. Bye.